Are you building something better? So are we. This September, Monocle's Quality of Life Conference brings together founders, creatives, and changemakers for 3 days of smart conversation, big ideas, and generous hospitality. From the future of cities to people-first leadership, we'll explore what it means to build with purpose and live well. Find out more and book your seat at monocle.com/conference.
Hello and welcome to The Entrepreneurs on Monocle Radio, the show all about inspiring people, innovative companies and fresh ideas in global business. On today's programme, we're heading to Hong Kong for a very special episode of the show recorded at the Upper House in the city. We'll hear from two leading figures from Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks Corporation, the organisation's CEO and one of its key strategic advisors, to explore how this multifaceted incubator of innovation is a catalyst for diversification of the city's economy. This is The Entrepreneurs, with me, Tom Edwards. You're listening to The Entrepreneurs on Monocle Radio. In a city known for vibrancy, HKSTP is turning that energy into innovation. This spirit was on display at the inaugural I&T Powerhouse Breakfast Club, a lively event co-hosted by HKSTP and Monocle Radio. As the organisation steering Hong Kong's I&T ambitions, HKSTP has cultivated a dynamic community of more than 2,300 ventures, 13 unicorns, and a vibrant ecosystem supporting at least 24,000 innovators, helping position the city as a global innovation powerhouse. According to Dr. Sunny Chai, the chairman of the corporation, HKSTP provides all the infrastructure and training and then lets all these ventures fly. To build on this momentum, HKSTP launched its I&T Powerhouse initiative to showcase Hong Kong's soft power and foster thought leadership. As part of the initiative, I joined the Breakfast Club event alongside an all-star cast of top industry leaders to discuss the city's progress and enjoy some lively exchanges about the path ahead. So we pick up with our show featuring insights from the panel and gathering at Upper House in Hong Kong.
Let's press on with our special edition of the Entrepreneurs, recorded here at Upper House in Hong Kong, proudly in partnership with Hong Kong STP. Now, if you know the programme, you should know, hopefully, what we do. We seek out inspiring people, innovative businesses, the freshest ideas that are driving entrepreneurship and business around the world, and that's what we're going to do. We're very lucky. They sometimes let me out of the studio, and I get to go out into the field and meet practitioners, exemplars, some of those benchmarkers that I mentioned, and we've got a couple of those here today. I think they're unified by an attitude, a hunger to embrace change and to seize the opportunity that's prompted by it. So let me introduce the special panel to you. We have Albert Wong, the CEO of Hong Kong STP, and alongside him, Dr. Allan Zeman, of course, chairman of Lang Fong Group and an advisor to the corporation. Gentlemen, a warm welcome. If I can invite you to grab your microphones so we don't lose any of your insights. Albert, I wanted to start with you, just I guess to get a headline first of all, in terms of we're talking about innovation and technology and how this sort of shapes, if you like, the identity of Hong Kong. Just give us a quick bit of context in terms of how Hong Kong STP fits into that and to what extent those values, the pursuit of innovation and the drive of technology does inform the identity of contemporary Hong Kong.
Let's start with the macro picture about Hong Kong, China, and the world. I think if you look at Hong Kong, for the longest time, Hong Kong is always about finance and tourism and retail and logistics. These are the pillar industries. You're not wrong if you think of Hong Kong that way, but in the past 6-7 years, there's been a lot of investment, a lot of national strategy that is put into this place. 2.5 years ago, President Xi was in Hong Kong and he came to the Science Park. He was supposed to spend 45 minutes in the park, but he spent an hour and a half. His message was that there are innovation technology hubs in China, Shanghai, Yangtze River Delta, Pearl River Delta, Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei. But Hong Kong is the international innovation technology hub. For various reasons, one of them is that Hong Kong, we have 5 universities that are ranked top 100. There are only two cities that have so much concentration of R&D universities. That's Hong Kong and London. In fact, London has 4. We have 5. So this is the very important thing of Hong Kong, that we are good in basic research, but we haven't done good enough in translational, meaning we have done our basic research, but they do not turn into products. Versus you look across the border in Shenzhen, they've been doing so good in the past 30 years in commercialization, entrepreneurship, and this is the largest ecosystem across the border. And in my opinion, I was born and educated in Hong Kong. I really think that we've lost a number of years, but if Shenzhen can do that in 30 years, we can do that in the next 10, 20 years. So this is what we're looking at. The other thing about Hong Kong is that we have a special position in China because we are the most international city of the country. We can bring technology and people in China out to the rest of the world, which we've been doing. I can talk about that too. But we can also attract talent and technology to come to Hong Kong and explore China. So these are the two main reasons: the basic research and being an international hub of the country. And that is why Hong Kong should play a big role in the INT, innovation technology, for the country. It's not just Hong Kong, it is China. The global is a national strategy.
Well, we'll talk more about the relationship with China and Shenzhen in a second. But Allan, let me bring you in here. You're somebody that people will know has been a real leading light, a force in, well, I guess, shaping the sort of contemporary fabric, right, of Hong Kong. Just to pick up on what Albert was saying, what do you think that next phase will look like, should look like, in terms of how technology is woven into that fabric?
Well, I think in the past, I've been here 57 years, actually. So I've been here under the British years, I've been here under the Chinese years, and I've been in China for 45 years as well. And so I've seen the changes taking place. Hong Kong traditionally was known as a cultural desert. Technology was not a factor. Hong Kong was all about property market and stock market. And it was a financial center, and that was really, and the gateway to the world, the super connector between China and the West and China. And so that was the way people grew up here, without really advancing in technology. China, on the other hand, was just nothing. It was farms and field. But 30 years later, to me, it's the most prominent tech place in the world. And we're 14 minutes by high-speed rail away from Shenzhen now. And so China continued on technology. Hong Kong just kind of was stuck in a time warp. But suddenly, when President Xi Jinping was here and went to the science park, and I'm in China almost every 2 weeks, it's so technologically driven, everything. They don't even use cash. Everything's Alipay, or WeChat Pay. Everything's, using your phone, and everything's technology driven, everything, whatever you can dream of. The best in the world. The famous US still uses cash and credit cards, and the rest of Europe, the same. But because they have 1.4 billion people, they need to do it. Technology really simplifies the life of people. Hong Kong suddenly woke up. If you listen to Financial Secretary this week, has been really busy with so many events in Hong Kong. Every second word that came out of his mouth is about AI, AI, AI. And I think the fact that DeepSeek in China will show the world what China can do and what can be done for $5.6 million US, compared to 50 billion in a closed environment versus an open environment. It just changed concept of people, and it enthused down in China everyone, and Hong Kong as well. That euphoria has kind of come into Hong Kong with so much gusto. We just finished the Jumpstarter yesterday event, and it was amazing. 800 international people, startups who came to Hong Kong and wanted to, everything, everywhere from Sweden, Switzerland, Germany, you name it. And so everybody has a dream. And Hong Kong suddenly has become, we have money. That's the good thing. And the government suddenly woke up that it's not just about finance.
Well, let's interrogate that a bit more deeply now, but let me bring that back to you in terms of this cross-border relationship with all of its complexities. What does that look like? What should it look like? There's a potential for great collaboration. There's obviously a rivalry of sorts. Is it a healthy rivalry? Are there tensions? What's the secret to most effectively navigating the complexities of that relationship?
Yeah, I think this is a very important question. Shenzhen is across the border, definitely a big ecosystem. Hong Kong has a special role. I think we need to find our niche, the thing that I was talking about, the basic research, the international connection. These are the things that we could do well. I'll be honest, Shenzhen and Hong Kong are rivalry. There are competitions going on, but we should focus on what we can do well. There's a lot of things that we can do and Shenzhen cannot do. We talk about AI, we talk about biomedical research. Don't just focus on AI. AI is everywhere. I think I would even say that AI, you don't need to talk about it anymore. It's just everywhere, everything. We should focus on getting we call it the 0 to 1, the basic research, and then try to translate that into commercialization and products. The other thing is that we should build up our own investment ecosystem to help the startup technologies. Hong Kong is a big hub for finance, property development, property markets, and stock markets. But the VC investment in Hong Kong, in my opinion, is underdeveloped. There are some good VCs, good early stage investors, but I was in Silicon Valley a number of times last year. I think we are way behind them in terms of the way we do early stage investment and how to help the startup. And the other thing about Hong Kong is that in the past few years, we have done a lot of work in creating a lot of startup tech companies in Hong Kong. We have, right now, our statistics says that we have about 4,700 tech company startups in Hong Kong. That seems like a lot. We've been growing like 30, 40, 50% every year. But it's 4,700, but across the board in Shenzhen, we talk about 20,000. So we need to grow exponentially. Although we've done a lot of work, we're just not big enough. So these are the kind of things that we need to do. And to answer your question, yes, there's rivalry going on between Hong Kong and Shenzhen, but we need to focus on what we can do well. And we need to grow exponentially. And just so you know, we're in the science park right now. We're now almost full, 95% occupied. But we're going to build another science park in the Northern Territory in the next 5 to 10 years. The same size of a science park. I have no idea what to do. We're working on it, but we're going to build a new science park in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yet more exciting developments. Allan, let me ask you about that. We alluded to the sort of geopolitical landscape, and you were saying, the government's kind of woken up to the opportunity. Does the unique sort of political status of this place provide an opportunity to deliver in terms of the challenge that you painted before? Can you tell us how this backdrop can actually affect the change we need?
Well, in the past, we didn't have land. We were blessed with the UK, who were originally deemed 7% of all the land in Hong Kong for residential and 12% for commercial. And that's what we were stuck with, and we maintained that. Hong Kong's a beautiful place, but the shortage of land really, really caused a problem for innovation, for new things. But we've now allocated under the previous administration to do something called the Northern Metropolis, which is attached to Shenzhen, which is our neighbor, which is a plot of land that really will house, I think, around 300,000 residents. But there's also going to be a big allocation for new development, for technology, for buildings, for, attracting talent. And so even the science park, there's one there's 3 buildings that are just being finished. One are finished, and the other 2 will be not too far distant in a place called Hetao. And so the connection, I know we like to think we're different than China, Shenzhen, whatever. It's now becoming the integration, one big area, one big loop. And that's the start of it. And the idea now is to attract companies who can set up that, because now we have land. So there's no excuse anymore. And so, I've been with the science, I've seen the science park from the first days when it was just starting off, not with people from technology, basically, but, kind of people who are consultants for development, typical government appointees, that kind of thing. But until these 2 guys came along, Albert and the team, just everything changed. And now we became a serious contender. And we have, as he says, we're 95% full there. And now attracting, and the other thing is startups need money, but I want to attract established companies. Especially, we have the opportunity from China. There are so many good companies in technology and in all facets of technology, not just AI, but everything, in chips, semiconductors, you name it. And so I honestly think now that we have land and we are the gateway to the West, we can be the super connector between a lot of these companies who want to go to the world And really, Hong Kong suddenly becomes a hub of activity. A lot of companies like Huawei, it's a great company in China. They have the big presence in the science park, but there's so many of those kind of companies. And so, now AstraZeneca will be opening up in Hong Kong, and CATL, the battery company, will be opening up in Hong Kong, the first two. But the more internet and the more technology companies who can open in Hong Kong, it changed the brands immediately. It's a different world suddenly.
Well, let's talk about that opportunity as a super connector. And I suppose there's various facets to it. There's this question of market access. There's obviously the issue, Albert, of funding. But talent is something you've both alluded to already. What is the critical talent acquisition strategy as you see it? Or perhaps more explicitly, what should that strategy be?
Yeah, Allan was talking about Huawei and some of these big companies that are moving to Hong Kong. Companies move to Hong Kong not because of the incentives or other things, it's really because of talent. We've been working on the talent initiative in the past 3-4 years. It's actually really not part of our mandate to do anything about it, but we have done a lot of work in talent. And when I talk about talent, it's really two things. One of them is to provide opportunity for the local youngsters. There's a lot of good young people in Hong Kong that are very good in the STEM subjects, in the science, technology, mathematics. They often win a lot of things in international competition. So we need to provide them opportunity for training, for development, for internship, and also let them know what is going on, what is available. So give you an example. Last summer, we have about 350 interns in the science park. Most of them are from local, but a lot of them are from international. They had a great time. I put them in a startup, and they learned a lot. And I went to UK just last month. I went to UCL, Imperial, and King's College, and then Cambridge, Oxford, with all the students. In UCL alone, they have like 600 applications for our internship. So one of the things that we want to do is provide opportunity for the youngsters to experience what it is in technology innovation. We don't do education. We don't do research. We wouldn't touch what the university is doing. But we want to provide opportunity and give them hope that pursuing career in technology is good. I honestly think that this is shifting. I keep saying I was born educated in Hong Kong. I haven't spend much time working in Hong Kong because there has just not enough opportunities. And if you look at the Hong Kong culture in the past, it would say 8 years ago, it's always about finance, and I wanted my son to be an iBanker. Of course, they want to be doctors and lawyers, but in my days, in the 80s, 90s, it's the CS, computer science, and electrical engineering. But nowadays, it's business. But I think it's changed a lot. The culture has shifted a lot. There's a lot of interest of pursuing a career in technology. So that's for the local. And I would say equally important is to attract talent from overseas. All right, so I'm not saying which one is more important, but equally important, local talents and international talents. And we need to attract all the talents from different parts of the world. I was in some of the international universities in West Coast, Berkeley and Stanford. And there are opportunity for these people to come work in Hong Kong. They want to do that. You come to Hong Kong, I would say that you are working close to China, but you're in a different system, one country to system. And there are opportunities for you to work with the universities for pursue basic research while doing this translation. So the talent landscape is about two things: give opportunity and give hopes to the locals. And equally important, bring all the talents from different parts of the world. And I think Hong Kong can do this better than any cities in China.
Can I ask you, Allan, about tension? And it's interesting. I think if you think culturally, and Albert was talking about a shift in culture, if we look at culture, if we look at placemaking, things that you've been so deeply involved in, balance is always critical, right? And you need to balance up the heritage play and all of that incredible story with this much more progressive and fast-moving agenda. Is there a tension there with making sure that Hong Kong strikes the right balance? And as someone who knows it so deeply, how do you strike that balance? You're a man who knows.
I think that for sure, as Albert said, there's this generation now of young people who before were lost, who really gave up on Hong Kong. Many left, and we've been through many, many different ups and downs. And so now, suddenly, there's this whole renewed optimism. And it's funny, one thing, I believe, changed the optimism of all young people, all people around the world, and really marks China and Hong Kong as being a place to suddenly come, and that's DeepSeek. DeepSeek was able, for $5.6 million US, to prove with open source, instead of closed source, which ChatGPT was doing, with OpenAI was doing, was really able to show that you don't need to spend $50 billion on a closed source system. 5.6 million, everyone can be in technology and do well. I saw this morning that Liang, who headed it, he's now, I think, the second richest in China. Just unbelievable, just within the last few months, actually. And so that was the game changer, both for China and Hong Kong, to wake up that we can also do. We used to look up to the U.S., so there's a cultural change. The other thing that we must remember, we have 5 top universities. For the last 20 years, we've been in the top 100. 3 of them are in the top 25 consistently. And so R&D is amazing. And if you follow the news, what's happening is all scientists, all people who were in the U.S., in top universities and all that, all Chinese, are all coming back to China. In Hong Kong, I believe, as we now have the initiative of being, with all this R&D that we have and the young people, I believe we can really make a statement for ourselves and really become a culturally driven, IT-driven city, and not just about finance. The good thing is IT needs finance. That's one thing that we excel in. We have 2,700 family offices at the moment. And within the next 2 years, we will be number 1. And we were number 2 before Switzerland, as traditionally was always number 1 in family offices. We will beat Switzerland in 2 years. And so, and the government finally is, HKIC, the different organizations putting $100 billion into different technology-driven companies, startups. And so now we were weak in VCs, especially in technology for a while, because it was not the thing. Now you're going to see a totally different mandate.
Well, no, and it's interesting that there's this sort of emphasis on genuine value creation. This is important if we look even at the work of Hong Kong STP, Albert. It's about, you're a park, but it's also about investment, not a gigantic player, but a very significant one. But the pursuit of value creation, we need to make sure we're not always discussing these things in abstract terms. I mean, are there interesting sort of case studies or use cases that can demonstrate that kind of value generation in the work that you have done and still do?
Yeah, the science park itself is not a big area. We talk about 200,000 square meters of land, 22 hectares. We have altogether now about 2,000 companies. All of them are on site. We provide a lot of communal facilities for semiconductor, data, biomedical, for startup, for small companies to do their product development. And we also do things like incubation programs. So you have an idea to start a company. We'll work with you over the period of 1 to 3 years to realize your dream, to not just about product, but also finding businesses. A number of things that we have done recently on top of all this talent and incubation is to bring these companies outside of Hong Kong. Because Hong Kong itself is so small, only 7 million population. We need to bring them outside of Hong Kong, like going to China, Greater Bay Area, but even more importantly, going to the West Coast. Last year, we sent 5 companies to Palo Alto for 6 months and asked them to go there to survive, not to train, not to be trained, not to learn, but to survive. And they need to figure out what to do with the legal entity. And ended up, they all raised some funding and businesses. We're going to send 10 companies next month. And we are sending companies to Singapore, Southeast Asia, Thailand, to look for businesses. And we have a couple of companies that are successful in the Middle East. So one of the biggest value creation for us to do is to help these guys find businesses, not just the technology science, but commercialize, find the businesses. The other big thing is not just about finding businesses, but also finding investors. So we are an investment fund. From our own balance sheet, we're able to fund a VC. We invest in series to seed to A round. We have invested in about 30 to 40 companies now, but also we own some shares in some of the better companies. So altogether, we have about 130 companies that we own some shares. We are now, the AUM, asset under management, is about $2.2 billion, so roughly $300 million. So we have evolved from being a park management company, facility management, into an incubator, to an accelerator, to a talent hub, to a $2.2 billion, $300 million AUM investment fund. And I am sure in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll have new things to do. I don't know yet. We're going to pivot and find new things to support all this development because Hong Kong is growing up so fast. I cannot predict what is going on. It's just the only thing I can predict is that it will be very, very exciting. We're getting philanthropy. I mean, we're getting donation to help us, and we got a lot of help from good people to help want to play a role in this. It's not about the money, but want them to be part of our ecosystem. So Sun and I keep on reinventing what we're doing. I'm sure there will be new things going. By the way, I was saying that with the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to build a new science park. So there will be a lot of exciting things happening here. So just come talk to us.
I just want to ask about this sort of the internationalizing of these tech advances. And you've both spoken about this so much. Just if we look at the US, and Allan, I'll throw this over to you. Obviously, we don't want to get into the thorny issues of what's going on in DC at the moment. But, these things need to be looked at on a global basis. I don't know, if Sino-US tensions are ratcheted up, if there's an escalation there, what kind of trickle down and what kind of impact does that have on trying to drive a progressive tech-led agenda? And is it one of those examples where it makes things more volatile, it maybe adds uncertainty? Does it also provide a great opportunity if that's happening over there?
Well, it certainly does, because before, of course, everybody looked to the U.S. as the gift to the world, and especially for technology and every other thing. They were number one in the world. Europe, where you come from, was, U.S. was the savior for Europe. And we just had something called the BOAO conference in Shenzhen. Our chief executive, John Lee, was just there. And I think in the month after next, he will be leading a delegation to the Middle East of, first time, companies from China, a lot of companies from China, from Hong Kong, in technology, basically, because that's what China is all about now, because they have an aging population. And what President Xi Jinping has deemed in 2 sessions, which just finished a few months ago, was that they must, number one, they've recognized all private enterprises, because private enterprise, in the past, the SOE, the state-owned enterprise, was really the ones that they had to look after because they employed a lot of older people. But now, going forward, technology, he's deemed that China must use technology now. 50% of the SOEs has to be done. All the factories need to use technology as 50% to really deem, because as people retire, technology, robotics is like they're number one in the world at the moment. And they're using it in a lot of production facilities. And so they're so far ahead of the world in that. And so what will happen is Hong Kong suddenly, with the chief executive leading actually the pact to the Middle East of both Hong Kong and mainland, the integration together is suddenly looking as one instead of 2 separate places, which is a change of a culture. But that's something, the other thing that we have to remember, we have something called the Greater Bay Area, which not many people know what it is all about. And it's 11 cities, 4 key cities, Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Macau, and Guangzhou, and 7 other support cities, peripheral, all within with the high-speed rail. China has 55,000 kilometers of high-speed rail, the fastest. U.S. is still using coal, and same with you guys, with UK. And so they've so far advanced. And so because of that, the furthest distance in the Greater Bay Area is 1.5 hours by high-speed rail. So it connects 86 million people. Last year, they had a GDP of over $3 trillion, the 10th largest in the world at GDP. And so larger than Italy, larger than South Korea. So China is really moved this Greater Bay Area, and all people that are technology driven, and we become part of the ecosystem. So young people, Hong Kong finally becomes part of this ecosystem, especially the Greater Bay Area. And I think that will really change young people's culture, young people, and this part of the world is coming up so strong. Jack Ma, from Alibaba, just recently said that China now has a chip that his company has created that is better than the H800 from NVIDIA in the US, and is 20% cheaper. And so the innovation that's coming out of there, because necessity is the mother of invention,
Just a very quick final thought, Albert, from you. In terms of a quick sort of call to action, I think we've sketched over some of the key themes, but in the short term, what are your primary aspirations? What needs to happen in a word or two? It's a tricky challenge in terms of how we can best position to navigate, the challenges that lie ahead.
I think we're in the right path. We're doing all the right things. The only thing I would ask, I wouldn't change a thing, but the only thing I would ask is to do it faster, take a little bit more risk. Because it's not like running a corporation where you have to do exactly what and exactly expect what the outcomes are. I think we need to take a little bit more risk for individual, for the government, for everybody, and do it just faster. Because the world is not waiting. And a lot of people are running like really, really fast. The young ones want to do that. And the world is different now. I wouldn't change a thing except that just do it faster and just a little bit more, take a little bit more risk.
Albert, an excellent sentiment on which to close. Albert Wong, CEO of Hong Kong STP, and Dr. Allan Zeman, thanks for joining us on this special edition. A huge thanks to everyone at Hong Kong STP, of course, and to all here at Upper House for facilitating us and hosting us.
And that concludes our special edition of The Entrepreneurs, recorded on site in partnership with Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks Corporation. You can discover what's next in Hong Kong by visiting hkstp.org to learn more. And that's all for this episode of The Entrepreneurs. We'll be back at the same time next week. The programme was produced by Laura Kramer with audio editing by Jack Dewars. Listen again and find out more about the show at monocle.com, or you can follow us and catch up with the archive wherever you get your podcasts. To contact the team, do email Laura on lrk@monocle.com. I'm Tom Edwards. Goodbye and thanks for listening to The Entrepreneurs.